What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Sunday Night Football NFL Pre-Lock Show here on RotoGrinders. Happy to be with you as we break down the first Sunday night game of the year. The Bucs and the Cowboys should be a fun one here, in Dallas on Sunday Night Football. It's been an interesting Week 1 slate. Plenty of stuff to talk about from the games this afternoon, but I'm sure everyone in the chat will commiserate about that. I know Will here was big on the field goal kickers, so who knows if a few of the missed kicks in the overtimes this afternoon cost him anything, but
they did not.
They did not. Okay. McPherson didn't cost you anything with his doink there or the missed extra point or the missed field goal?
No.
Well, that's good. That's good.
I missed one field goal play, and it didn't matter because that was in like a 5 flex. I hit all the other ones I had. I did have massive exposure to McPherson. I had pretty much the lock button on him in every card, but I took him over 1.5 field goals. So he made 2 field goals. He just didn't make it when it counted for his team. It did count for me, which I was incredibly grateful for.
Good for Will, bad for the Bengals. But that's part of the beauty of fantasy football. It's about the numbers, and we'll try to bring you some numbers here with the Sunday night game. Of course, he's Will Priester. I'm Justin Van Zuiden, aka STL Cardinals 84. And if you had a rough afternoon slate, you can wipe it clean. We can start fresh here with this game tonight, and should be an interesting one. Lots of news to get to. And of course, if you are new to our shows here on RotoGrinders, we are this show and plenty of others. There's been like 6 shows during the day today. Our jam-packed content schedule features shows pretty much every day of the week. You can see it there on the screen now. Single entry, showdown, GPP builds. You can follow us right here on the RotoGrinders YouTube channel and on the Daily Fantasy Football podcast feed if you want to listen to some of those shows as podcasts. You can find that wherever you get your podcast from. So be sure to keep it tuned here to RotoGrinders all season long. And from the sports betting side, we've got you covered as well at scoresandodds.com, your number one place for all things sports betting. Arm yourself with the best tools and analysis with a premium subscription over at scoresandodds.com to make yourself a better sports bettor. But we've got a big game here tonight. Injury news, I mentioned, is going to be part of it. Dak Prescott is going to play, but rumors that his mobility might be somewhat limited as he returns from injury. So if you're banking on some rushing production from him, maybe scale that back a little bit. Michael Gallup is out for Dallas. He's not ready to come back yet. So their wide receiver core is a little bit thin. And both Chris Godwin and Russell Gage are active for Tampa, though we're kind of unsure how many snaps Godwin is going to play. So that becomes the big question mark. Will, what does the injury news do for you here in this game?
Well, I mean, I definitely think it's going to end up forcing us, I think, into certain plays. And so when you've got this many, what I'd like to call critical pieces out for an offense like Dallas, and then uncertainty on the other side with Tampa Bay, I think you're going to have to get really creative tonight in terms of how you leverage the ability to get different with the field. There are going to be some plays that on a normal slate probably aren't chalky in the slightest. And then, there are going to be some plays tonight where you look around and go, oh, I want to throw up. And that's how I think this is going to go. So I'm want to embrace that variance tonight. I want to take some stands. I took a stand the other night. Of course, that did not work out. Allen Robinson did absolutely nothing. My thought process in this contest has not changed. I still think stands need to be taken so that you can get where you want to be at the top of the mountaintop.
The other bit of news, rookie receiver Jalen Tolbert for Dallas is inactive, so he will be out tonight. They're going to roll with Lamb, Noah Brown, Turpin, and Simi Fehoko, and Dennis Houston as their 5 active wide receivers. So just make sure that Tolbert
and Tony Pollard.
And Tony Pollard will act as a wide receiver as well. That's very true. So, I mean, when you look at these teams that are decimated with receiver injuries, these secondary running backs become really valuable assets out of the backfield. So yeah, definitely with Pollard. We'll talk about him here in a bit. When we're talking about kind of captain usage or MVP usage on FanDuel, captain on DraftKings, you've obviously got the fantasy point multiplier and the salary multiplier as well on DraftKings. Most people like to go with the quarterbacks, but really interesting with Godwin maybe being on a snap count and Dallas being so limited with injuries. I think you might see people go with Lamb or Mike Evans in their captain spots tonight. So how are you handling who you want to prioritize as your captain tonight?
Well, I think for me, I feel like it probably still needs to be Dak. I still think Dak is going to spread it around enough to where I think the only way CeeDee Lamb beats me tonight is if he goes like Justin Jefferson mode, 150 and 50 touchdowns. Like outside of that, I still think Dak is the upside play, even with the lack of mobility. Especially with Dallas at home. So that's kind of where I feel like I'm leaning, because if his mobility is not there, then he's really going to be airing it out. You get what I'm saying? So him and Brady are essentially the same. I think at this point in his career, Dak is better than Brady physically. I'm not saying mentally. I'm saying physically. And so I'm going to give the nod to Dak here and go from there.
All right, that's interesting. I really don't know how to handle this. I kind of took the stance of being underweight on Prescott with that mobility issue, and given the question marks they have at receiver, I'm a little heavier on Brady, but I do think Dallas can keep this game close. And if they do that, maybe they played a little bit closer to the vest. Who knows? If you think that Dallas is going to fall behind, then, I think Elliott is probably a guy that you want to stay away from, or if you just kind of think that he's washed, that would be a reason to stay away from him as well, obviously. But my kind of highest owned captains are more so on the Tampa side. I think Fournette is viable as well. You look at their limited depth at running back. Seems like Bernard is the third guy now. They give Fournette plenty of looks in the passing game as well. So more than one way to slice this, of course, but because you've got star power on both sides. But Godwin is the one guy that I just don't know if I want to take the risk. There's no reason for them to push him for extreme snaps, right out of the gate after you just signed him to an extension. So you can make that work whatever way you want to with your captain, depending on how you think the game is going to go. So both quarterbacks will obviously be popular, Brady and Prescott. In these showdown builds, we talk about it all the time. The quarterbacks tend to be like 80% owned when you combine their captain ownership and their flex ownership. So that probably won't change tonight. But let's go ahead and dig a little bit deeper into the running backs. And you mentioned kind of Tony Pollard playing a wide receiver type role for Dallas. And it's interesting because we've got Pollard projected for slightly more production and slightly less ownership, and he's also on DraftKings $1,400 cheaper than Zeke. So our projections would lean toward Pollard being the preferred play. How are you handling the running backs tonight?
Yeah, I feel like Pollard is the better play tonight for sure because of what I feel like is his pass catching upside. I do think he's still going to rush the ball a handful of times, maybe 5 to 7 times at the most. But I definitely think with this receiving core that Pollard's probably going to pick up, I would say, at least 6 targets tonight for what it's worth. Like that's kind of what I have in my mind. Like he's still going to run the ball, but he could come out being like the wide receiver 2 on this team tonight, depending on how the game shifts. I still think Dak's favorite targets are going to be Lamb and Dalton Schultz, and we'll get into that in a minute. But I think Tony Pollard is the third option here in terms of targets tonight. So I'm very interested in Tony Pollard. We've seen him play. He is a guy that has some explosive ability. And, he could take one of these screens or one of these short passes to the house. He'll probably, especially if they're running some sort of 11 personnel. He'll probably end up matched on a linebacker, which should make it a little bit easier for him. So I really like Tony Pollard as an upside option. He's, like you said, cheaper than Zeke. And I definitely think, we've got Zeke at 37% and him at 26%. You already talked about the discount. I definitely think it's worth it.
Yeah, I would agree. I just it just based on the pricing and the way it makes your lineup work, it just makes sense to put Pollard in there. Like if you're trying to go, all right, let's say Brady. Let's say you want to get Brady and Evans in there. Where there's Evans. So Brady and Evans, and then maybe a cheap Dallas wide receiver, and then let's put Leonard Fournette in there as well. Like, if you want to play these high-end guys, right, for this lineup that I just threw together here quick, you've got 6,400 per player left, and so Pollard fits that mold a lot more than Zeke does. You'll just find as you start to put these lineups together that Pollard with that $1,400 discount on DraftKings, and it's even more significant on FanDuel, where Zeke is ridiculously priced up. It's like $3,500 difference. So I am with you. I think Pollard ends up being the better play from that group, especially if Dallas falls behind. But even if it's a competitive game, I think that that Pollard can certainly get there. So any interest in the Tampa Bay backfield? Obviously, seems like Fournette has got his stranglehold on that job.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't see anybody taking like massive work from him. And the thing is, in this offense, as we've seen, Justin, he gets involved in the passing game too. So as a result, he's definitely grading out better than Zeke tonight for me. I don't want to fade Zeke because I think what we saw last year was maybe Zeke was dealing with some injury, stuff like that. If Zeke's fully healthy, I want to see just kind of how they utilize him with a depleted wide receiver core. Because essentially, Zeke could be in on some passing downs early as well, and that could open up some catches for him. I mean, we've seen him, out in the passing game, catching passes, running down the sideline. So, the more I talk about this, and this is going to sound maybe counterproductive, but I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of lineups with all three running backs in them. And in my head right now, this is starting to get kind of interesting for me where I'm playing three of the running backs. Fournette's a guy that's going to have it on the ground and in the air. Pollard's probably going to have it. Possibly most of his production will come through the air versus the ground. And then Zeke, you may have the ground versus the air, but the opportunity is there for the touchdowns. So, I mean, this is a situation where you may be able to capture a great deal of production from all the running backs tonight. This has got me intrigued here, Justin. I didn't think we would get there, but as we've walked through it, I think this is a lineup I'm going to construct and throw in there.
Yeah, that's interesting. I kind of operated under the assumption that, Zeke and Pollard you'd want to keep them mutually exclusive. Like there's not enough production probably for both of them to get there. But with Dallas's limited depth at receiver, maybe there is. That might have been, an angle that I should have looked at a little bit more. I didn't build any lineups with Elliott and Pollard together, and frankly, probably not going to at this point. But it's an interesting talking point. And like you mentioned, not a build that a lot of people are going to do for the reasons that I mentioned. So interesting there. White and Bernard would be your secondary backs for Tampa that might get a few touches, and you're just kind of banking on a lucky explosive play or something like that. All right, let's talk receivers. Godwin is going to be active for Tampa. Again, we don't know how much he's going to play. So you've got a clear path for Evans to be the top receiver there, and Lamb clearly the top receiver for Dallas. With Gallup still out. So how are you handling the top receivers in this game tonight?
I definitely think for me, in terms of target share, I think CeeDee Lamb on paper should have the most targets in this game. I I still like Mike Evans a great deal here. I do think he's going to be some form of a security blanket for Tom Brady. And a guy that even if he doesn't catch 8 passes, we've seen Mike Evans score 20 fantasy points, with 4 catches, 2 touchdowns for 40 yards. Like we've seen him do that time and time again. And so for that reason, I definitely think Mike Evans has a lot more red zone appeal than, say, CeeDee Lamb in a general sense. So Mike Evans is actually my favorite target tonight, even though he's the most expensive. He's actually not the highest owned receiver. The highest owned receiver is CeeDee Lamb. So I like the little 15% discount we're getting. I think this is still a good spot for him. I'm not really worried about Dallas shutting them down. And I'm also not expecting this game to go exactly like it did last year in week 1, where both of them are throwing for 500 yards. And I know I exaggerated the total a little bit. I think this one will be a lot closer, but I am still expecting good production. And so I'm very interested in Mike Evans at the high end when most people are going to be playing CD.
All right. Yeah, I like Evans quite a bit as well. I'm off of Godwin again, just until we see it. Gage, it doesn't seem like he's going to be limited, so I suppose he's okay as a value. What Godwin and Gage being active does is worries me a little bit more about Julio Jones, who obviously isn't the same player he once was. It's just, age catches up to all of us at some point, and there's a lot of years in the league and a lot of injuries with Julio. So the secondary receiving options for Tampa just worry me a little bit too much. Maybe you can go for the tight ends, but otherwise it's just Evans with the receivers. I think where contests are going to be won and lost tonight is probably with how you handle the secondary receivers for Dallas, because you are probably going to need a punt in a lot of builds. So you've got Noah Brown at $3K on DraftKings. You've got Turpin at $1,800. You've got Houston and Fehoko both active at $200 a piece. Noah Brown is the safer option because it seems like he's going to be the number 2 guy, but there's a lot of unpredictability here. So what do you think about these other Dallas receivers?
I think this is a streaming opportunity, and they are going to get some ownership, but looks like Fehoko is going to get more ownership than Houston. And I don't know what Dallas is going to do with these guys, quite honestly with you, Justin, and I don't think you do either. I do know that CeeDee Lamb's going to get targets. Dalton Schultz is going to get targets in this passing game, probably more than anyone. And one of these guys is probably going to catch a touchdown for 15 yards or so, and that might be their only catch. And will that be enough to beat us? I don't know. But, Noah Brown at $3K, he's definitely higher floor than the 2K guys. You can definitely afford him. Like this, even though this is what would have been high-powered offenses and both had all of their weapons, they still don't feel expensive to where you're so restrictive that you can't do anything. And I think that's another interesting thing on this slate, because when you can get so many good players in a lineup, now we're getting a lot closer to maxing out our salary. You're leaving 500 on the table and 200 on the table, stuff like that. And so, for instance, and I'll kind of give you a build now where I have Dak in the captain, Dalton Schultz, and Tony Pollard. And I've got Julio Jones, and the rest of the lineup, if I leave it in, I have $100 remaining. Well, do I think Julio Jones is better than Fehoko? Absolutely. But what if I just take out Julio and I throw Fehoko in there? Well, now that changes my salary left over to $4,900, which makes me completely different in the field.
What was that? I was kind of trying to build it alongside you here. So.
Oh, okay, sorry. So, yeah, I've got Prescott, Schultz, Pollard, and then if you throw in
you have somebody from Tampa.
Yeah, I'm saying if you throw in Julio, right? Okay. And then I've got Fournette and Zeke. And so
that's up with $100 remaining.
Right. So then, but what I'm saying is Do I think Julio's a better player than Fiocco? Absolutely. But then if I take out Julio and I put in not Julio, excuse me. If I take out Zeke and put in Fiocco, I said Julio, I meant Zeke. If I take out Zeke and put in Fiocco, one of those combinations, like, is Zeke the better play? Yes. But what if Fiocco happens to catch 2 touchdowns in this game? Like, now the difference between his output and Zeke's output is going to be a lot closer. I mean, we're only projecting Zeke around 12.5 anyway. And if Fiocco catches 2 touchdowns, I mean, that's just 2 touchdowns with no yards is 14 points. And that's already more than Ezekiel Elliott is projected for. So I'm just saying, using those guys to get creative, it will be off the ball. And in a all likelihood, if you ran this thing 1,000,000 times, which we do have a tool that will do that for you, or it's already been done, Fiocco may not show up in any winning lineups, maybe 2, maybe 3. But tonight could be that lightning in a bottle night. And once again, because we can get so many good players in, we have a less likelihood to leave a lot of salary on the table. And so it's just trying to get different.
Yeah. And there's, that's always, like we say, you don't want to try to split first place with 900 other people. Yes, sometimes that will happen, but give yourself a chance with a lineup that has fewer duplications, and you have a lot more, potential upside with your overall winnings if you do end up with the best combo at the end of the night. And leaving salary on the table, certainly a good way to do that. So, all right, let's talk the tight ends here. Rudolph is inactive for Tampa, so Cameron Brate, pretty clear path to playing the majority of the snaps. And then we've got Schultz, who you were just talking about, who is going to potentially have a more of a role in the passing game with all their injuries at wide receiver. So, especially with Rudolph inactive, I'm fine with Brate and Schultz in this game as DFS plays. So I like the tight ends a little bit here. Yeah,
same here. And Card, you're talking the chat's language. I'm sure. I'm not looking at the chat, but man, Showdown, all the tight ends come out to play. So I'm almost positive that everybody loves that call of playing Schultz and Rudolph, Schultz and Brate together. I don't hate that call at all.
Yeah, definitely viable given the context of this game. And then let's see, that leaves us with defense and kickers. I know Will's probably going to like the kickers, so I'll let him talk about them.
Well, I'm not as interested in the kickers for the showdown build tonight per se. Like, do I like kickers? Yes. In the prop game, though, Justin, I will be taking the over 1.5 on field goals for both of these guys. I definitely think they'll be able to move the ball some. I do think kickers have their place here. I think where kickers are going to come into place tonight, for me, I think if you're trying to really hammer Dak and CeeDee Lamb and Brady and one of his pass catchers, I think the kicking may come in. And I know it might sound like, well, that game script kind of goes against you, because if they're scoring touchdowns, they're going to be kicking more extra points than field goals. But if you think about, and I always think about what happens between the 20s, with these two offenses, they may be able to move between the 20s, but they'll tighten up inside. And so they might not be able to score as many touchdowns as you think. And that's where the field goal unit comes into play. And, Dak ends with 280, 3 touchdowns, and Brady ends with, 280, 2 touchdowns, and Fournette runs one on the ground, and Zeke runs one on the ground, and they've also kicked two or three field goals for 40 yards. And they end up with 10 to 12 points, and that could be the difference between playing Noah Brown and one of the kickers, Like everybody else is playing Noah Brown, and he's got 2 catches for 20 yards and nothing, and then the kickers come out here and kick 2 40-yarders and 3 extra points, and they're at 11 fantasy points. So trying to balance that part of the game out is always very interesting to me. So I like the kickers, like them more for props tonight, but you don't ever have to sell me on kickers.
The chat actually is all about the slamming the Bucks here. I mean, we got people talking about Brady's marital situation, his lengthy absence. We've got Cowboys D at captain, Cam IM says. So I don't know. It seems like the public is low on Mr. Brady. Devin's even joined in the fun. Our producer's saying he might be trying to fade Brady. So nobody likes Brady, man. Years the age catches up to you, and the public is turning. The tides are turning against the wonder that is Tom Brady, and he will respond by showing the chat all his rings. But the chat seems to like Dallas a little bit here.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think I would take Dallas here for sure. Just in terms of they're at home opening night for them. I'm saying opening night, but Sunday Night Football. AT&T Stadium. I'm thinking Dallas is going to win this game. I'm not saying that the Bucks aren't going to put up points. I definitely think the Bucks put up points. But I do like Dallas to pull out a win here.
Yeah, I kind of like Dallas as well. But I think it'll be a competitive game. If I flip the screen share, so we've got like 7 minutes left here until lock. If you got questions, throw them in the YouTube chat. We can throw them along. A few point that a few other people have brought up is Tampa's offensive line. We're battling the hiccups here. I'm trying not to have giant loud hiccup on the air. It's a joyous thing. But Tampa's offensive line is a concern from a lot of people as well, and that's a fair point. They've got few injuries and some changes along the offensive line, so that might be an issue for both teams, really. I mean, Dallas, we know that they're missing one of their best offensive linemen too, so maybe that is a boost for the defense on each side. Wumbo wants to know if you have to roster a Dallas running back, like would you make any builds with neither Pollard nor Elliott on them?
I mean, I think you can get away with that too. I don't think that's the worst build in the world. However, the problem is Dallas is depleted with their weapons, and so they're going to have to get the production from one of these running backs, I think, to help mitigate the loss of these other receivers. Like, Amari Cooper is not just hurt; he's gone. Like he doesn't exist in this offense anymore. CeeDee Lamb's going to have this new interesting role probably at wide receiver 1. Does that mean the defenses are going to just try to take him away now? I don't know. What I do know is we may even see more 2 running back sets that we've seen, Justin, from the Cowboys ever. Because of the lack of weapons outside. So could you get away with it? Yes, but I don't think I want to fade both of the running backs in any lineups tonight. At worst case scenario, I think you'd one or the other. Did you mute yourself, Justin, by chance?
See, that's what happens. Once a show, this happens. It happened the last time we were on. I think we got lucky. But my microphone just randomly mutes itself like once per show. It's beyond ridiculous. I have no idea. We have no idea what's causing it. But alas, that was the once for this show. So I did not mute myself. My computer / the program that we're using to broadcast the show decided I didn't need to talk for a few minutes. All right. I lost my train of thought. See, that happens too when this goes. I was pivoting over to FanDuel. All right, so let's get FanDuel up here, and we'll show you the FanDuel Showdown builds here. And there's not a whole lot. Like, okay, this is something. If you're a premium subscriber at RotoGrinders and you watched our premium build that Tim Buell and I did for this, the salary cap on FanDuel for this game is a little bit tighter than what you would normally see for Showdown. So we'll have to see if that's like going to be a long trend or if it's just like this game. But the quarterbacks, Brady's 16K. A lot of times you'd see like 14K as the ceiling last year. And here's where I mentioned Elliott is $13K, Pollard is $9,500. So quite the difference in price on them on FanDuel. That makes Pollard a little more attractive on FanDuel than DraftKings. Noah Brown's got a pretty cheap price on FanDuel as well. So any additional thoughts from you on either on FanDuel or just kind of the game in general as we get closer to lock here?
I feel pretty similar about the FanDuel build. I do think on FanDuel, you're probably I still think you're playing one of these quarterbacks, especially if they're going to air it out and connect, just because they're going to have so much upside. If I had to choose one wide receiver, it's probably CD or Mike Evans, generally speaking, especially with Godwin hurt, or coming back from injury. And he is going to be on the snap a pitch count, but I don't think we know exactly what it is.
They've been pretty tight-lipped about it.
Yeah, I'm more inclined to just roll CD and go from there.
Yeah, it's tough to. I mean, you can still get, even though the cap is a little bit tighter, if you play a Noah Brown or Dalton Schultz is fairly affordable on FanDuel at $9,000. You know, if you don't have the salary multiplier on the MVP spot, so if you wanted to play Brady there. Then, I start filling in my flex spots with, say, Fournette, Schultz, Lamb, and then your last spot would be 7,500, which is kind of where like the Noah Brown types are. So you can still do it. It's a little tighter if you want to try to play both quarterbacks in the same lineup, which then you just have to maybe find another punt or something. But Devin threw a poll in the chat on who you taken in the game. 12% of the responders had no opinion. I'm not sure. You got to take a side. The 12%. Let's see, 40 votes. The 5 of you that voted for "Tell Me the Answer," hang your head in shame. You must take a side on these things. But those that did vote were split: 44% Tampa, 42% Dallas, 12%. That just wanted the answer, or too tired to form an opinion on the game, but hopefully should still be a lot of fun, as we are now about 45 seconds away from lock here. So not sure how much of a delay we have, but by the time this kind of hits the airwaves, it will pretty much be lock time for Sunday Night Football. So a good time to reset and let you know that we will do these videos for all of the primetime games. So tomorrow night, we've got the Broncos and the Seahawks, so a pretty exciting one right out of the gate there, with Russell Wilson going back to Seattle to face his former team. Looks like we'll be back with you for that one with Blunder. So they will be on for the Monday night pre-lock show, and then next Thursday night we've got the Chiefs and the Chargers. So that should be a fun one as well. Some pretty good primetime games to kick off the season. So be sure to check that out tomorrow. We are at lock here for Sunday Night Football. Please, if you're watching on the YouTube chat, drop us a thumbs up and a like if you are enjoyed the program. We appreciate that. Helps us out with the old YouTube algorithms. And if you want to stay caught up on all our great RotoGrinders media content that I talked about at the beginning of the show, there's just several shows every day, various topics related to fantasy football as we get through the month of September here. You can subscribe to the channel. That way you get notified when we're about to go live with our live shows. So with that, I think we can probably get out of here. Will, you got anything else?
No, man. Jameis Winston helped me make a lot of money today for what it's worth. My gosh.
Big comeback from them, too. That was quite the collapse by the Falcons today.
Oh, yeah. Jameis and Mr. McPherson. Whew, those guys are heroes. In fact, I need to go ahead and order my Jameis McPherson jersey immediately after we get out of this thing. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out.
All right, we'll get out of here so we can get those ordered. And we hope you all enjoyed the show and enjoyed the first week of the football season. Thanks to Devin. He's been very busy helping get all these shows coordinated and producing behind the scenes. So we appreciate his help, as always. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night, everybody. We'll be back at you tomorrow night for Monday Night Football. I am Justin. Thanks to Will as well. Have a great night, everyone.